Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
You know, I read this week that New York State Attorney General Letitia James, a woman who says no one is above the law, signed a power of attorney regarding a mortgage on a property that she owns in Virginia, in which she said that she intended to make that property her principal residence within 60 days. She signed this document only weeks last year before Donald Trump's trial, the so-called evaluation trial. And I've examined this document, and one of two things are true. Either she is guilty of mortgage fraud because she's a resident of New York, or if it's true, she's constitutionally ineligible to be the Attorney General of the state of New York. The man who ferreted this information out is Sam Antar, and he published the documents, the relevant documents, on his website, whitecollarfraud.com. Now, Sam Antar has had an interesting career. He went from being a former certified public accountant whose career trajectory took a remarkable turn when he was convicted in one of the largest financial and securities fraud schemes in history. But after paying his debt to society, he has reinvented himself, utilizing his forensic expertise, helping government agencies, law enforcement organizations, law firms and accounting firms, independent investment research firms, and hedge funds investigating when they do their due diligence. He is a genius. By the way, he's not a Republican. He is not a Trump supporter. He is not in the employ of anyone. He is a prolific researcher and author, and he joins us now. Sam Antar, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Roger, for having me on.
This is an amazing finding. I'm kind of shocked, given the legal implications of the document that you discovered, that this isn't page one of the New York Times. Sometimes they like to try to kill the messenger. In this case, they ought to pay attention to the message. Tell us about this document, and then we'll reel back and talk about the entire mortgage history of the chief law enforcement officer of the state of New York.
All right. In 2023, she purchased the property with a relative as joint tenancy with rights of survival in Virginia. It's in Norfolk, Virginia. And one of the documents she signed before purchasing the property was a power of attorney, giving her cousin the right to act on her behalf, but also saying that I am responsible for any actions my cousin does on my behalf. Irrespective of that, part of the power of attorney, she states specifically that she intended to be a Virginia resident. Let me just read it to you. I hereby declare that I intend to occupy this property as my principal residence. Now, She went on to get a mortgage based upon that declaration, and she had to move in, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the mortgage itself in front of me, but she was supposed to move into the property and occupy it. From what I see, that never happened. So it is likely that she filed the false statement. It's called fraud in the inducement to obtain a mortgage for a property that was supposed to be occupied, but she never occupied. In any case, let's put all of that aside. Okay, this is a month before the Trump trial. Okay, who's going to believe that she actually intended to change her residency, which would have meant she couldn't be the Attorney General of New York during the Trump trial, which she considers her greatest feat? Impossible. So that is the problem that she has on this specific document. She induced a favorable mortgage based upon her representations that she intended to occupy the property, which she did not. Okay, and also the fact is, if she did occupy the property, that means she should not be the Attorney General. No answer for her is any good. And then you have a third part that I didn't mention in my blog, is that she also has to file financial disclosures to New York State, personal financial disclosures. Since this is not a second home mortgage, okay, and it is not her primary residence, she should have disclosed this on her filings with New York State, where she has to list her financial assets and liability. That's another strike against her.
So this was not like some boilerplate document. This is a standalone legal declaration, correct?
That is correct, and she signed it. It was notarized, I think, in front of two individuals. The document was signed in New York for a property in Virginia, which makes it a federal offense, potentially mortgage fraud, mail and wire fraud, sending a phony statement through the instrumentalities of interstate commerce. So she's in deep trouble on this, as a whole host of other things.
Yeah, so let's stay focused on the Virginia property for a second, because there's a whole separate issue of issues surrounding her principal residence, which I believe is in Brooklyn. And by the way, that's a matter of public record. We don't dox people here. But she's made other misrepresentations regarding this property in Virginia, as I recall.
Well, she has two properties in Virginia. The one we just discussed was the one on Sterling Street. There's another property in Virginia that's on Peroni Avenue that she purchased in 2020. There she owned the property all by herself. She purchased it for about $138,000, took a $108,000 mortgage on it. The interesting thing about that property was she showed the property on a New York State financial disclosures, but did not show the mortgage which she used to purchase the property on her financial disclosures. And then 2 years later, she says she got two mortgages on that property in the amount of approximately $250,000 to $400,000, and those two mortgages are nowhere in any property reports. They did title searches. Went through the documents. Had people go through the documents at the county clerk's office. Those two mortgages are ghosts. The other thing the other troubling issue with that property is if you add her purchase money mortgage, the mortgage that she took when she bought the property, $108,000, and you add the two other mortgages, which are between $250,000 to $400,000, you have $350,000 in outstanding mortgages to $500,000 in outstanding mortgages on the property that she values, her words, not mine, between $100,000 to $150,000. Who gets that kind of a leverage on a piece of property, which, according to her financial disclosures, is not producing any income since 2001?
So, in other words, there's evidence here that she's done exactly what she, I think, falsely accused Donald Trump of doing, inflating the value of her assets in order to get a loan.
Yes. Either she inflated the value of her assets to get a loan, or she filed false statements with the state of New York, or she committed mortgage fraud. In other words, no option, no answer that she can give helps her.
Gee, and the weird thing is that the New York Times and the New York Post are not calling her and asking these questions. Because, as she likes to point out so often, no one is above the law. I saw her on the computer over the weekend speaking to Al Sharpton's National Action Network, and she said, I ain't afraid of no Donald Trump. We'll talk about this when we get back. We'll be right back with Sam Antar of White Collar Fraud. Don't go away.
This is The Roger Stone Show.
Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. 9.5 plus pH, now in cans.
Refreshing.
Made for every way you move.
Should I run a marathon?
Let's start with finishing that water. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant, now in a sleek can. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Not everyone is careful with your personal information, which might explain why there's a victim of identity theft every 5 seconds in the U.S. Fortunately, there's LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year by visiting LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. Underwear drawers are like the Wild West. You never know what you're going to pull out or what shape it's in. So upgrade your collection with the buttery soft comfort of MeUndies. MeUndies' signature fabric is as soft as a warm hug from your favorite sweater. Plus, it's breathable and oh so comfy, making it ideal for all-day wear. Get 20% off your first order, plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/Spotify with code SPOTIFY. That's MeUndies.com/Spotify, code SPOTIFY.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is The Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back. We're talking to Sam E. Antar, who has had an amazing career trajectory. He was a certified public accountant. He was involved with one of the major consumer electronics chains in the United States in the 1980s. I'm sure you remember it, Crazy Eddie's. He was convicted in one of the largest security fraud schemes in history. He paid his debt to society, and after doing so, he has dedicated his life to ferreting out corruption through his unique forensic accounting and research skills, where he has worked for government agencies, law enforcement organizations, law firms, and others searching for the truth. He has an amazing website at whitecollarfraud.com. The amazing thing, Sam, about your website is that you link to all the actual documents. So if you don't believe anything we're talking about today and you want to check it out for yourself, you can go there. And there are links to all of these controversial documents with the signatures on them. You can see for yourself whether we are bringing you the stone cold truth, because Well, we are. On the overall issue of mortgage fraud, we have talked about this conundrum of the New York Attorney General Letitia James, who signed a sworn statement saying that she intended to become a resident of Virginia within 60 days in order to secure this mortgage, which would make her legally ineligible to be the Attorney General of New York. By the way, I checked the law. Moving out of state automatically vacates the office, or the office is declared vacant. This is not the only mortgage problem she has had. At 24 years old, she obtained her first mortgage for a home, and in that transaction, she represented that her father, whose financials she relied on to obtain the mortgage, was her husband, but he wasn't her husband, he was her father. It's correctly recorded on the title, but it is not correctly recorded in the mortgage. That is, by the way, mortgage fraud. In another instance, she got a federal HAMP loan by claiming that a property she was obtaining a mortgage for had 5 rentable units when it only had 4. So this has become a pattern. If you doubt any of this, all of it was uncovered by Sam Antar. All of it has been laid out in a very understandable format. Go to whitecollarfraud.com. Sam is also fearless. Anyone who wants to challenge him, he can defend his positions. He is exercising his First Amendment rights, and I think doing so in a very effective way. Sam, we talked last night. You're not a Republican. You're not a Trump supporter. You're not political, really, other than you criticize politicians of both parties when they do things wrong, and you document everything you report. I want to go back to a report you had on March 23rd, where you showed that Letitia James, the Attorney General, spent $41,000 on state-funded private flights. You wrote that over a 13-month period, New York Attorney General Letitia James' office spent $41,807 in taxpayer funds on private jet travel. These flights were paid to a vendor that no other New York State agency uses. There are no visible contracts, no passenger records, or travel justifications in any public databases, but you do point out that these trips align perfectly with known campaign events for the Attorney General. Yet there are no reimbursements that appear in state campaign records. This same vendor, this air charter service, was later paid by the James campaign in a separate transaction. No private jet takes off, no public schedule, no contract identifier appears in the state controller's public transparency portal. There is no explanation for this air travel except for the payment record, and the taxpayers are paying for it. It's interesting that one of these flights takes place at the exact same time that Letitia James' campaign pays $2,000 for a beachfront rental in Martha's Vineyard. That seems very suspicious to me. Can you talk to us about this?
Yes, what happens is she has a history of lavish spending on her campaigns. But that's campaign money. That's a different subject entirely, whether she's wasting her campaign funds for personal benefit, which would become a taxable event. But we'll put that aside for now. What she also did was she spent about $41,000 on this vendor called Venture Jets, LLC. They do private charter travel. And from November 6, 2020 to December 13th, 2021, she made 6 payments to that private jet company. The November 6th payment, which is $54.90, that was 3 days after the presidential election in 2020. The August 10th payment, August 10th, 2021, was $7,015.45. The same exact day that James' campaign paid $2,000 for Martha's Vineyard rental. Okay, on November 8th, 2021, she made 2 payments to that same private jet company, totaling $13,300 in change. that at that time she was in Somos, Puerto Rico. Now I believe that private jet companies, you can't pay them net 30 days or whatever. You have to pay them basically cash on delivery. In other words, you got to pay when you take the flight, or right before you take the flight, if I'm not mistaken. So those are very, very troubling. The other thing that you can ask, irrespective, why are you spending government money on private jets?
All right, Sam, I'm afraid we have to wrap it up there. I want to thank our guest, Sam Antar, truth teller. And we'll be right back with that eggplant parmesan recipe coming up next.